So the first thing I do when I'm painting is I grab a color palette. I am really bad at color. In my brain, I'm like, grass is green, paint the grass green. But all of the best art that, like my favorite artists, use constrained color palettes and make it work. So I use an app called Coolers that generates color palettes for you. So I will typically just go with whatever the first one is that generates when I open the app. It takes a lot of the anxiety about picking the right colors, and it forces you to be creative within the system that is provided for you. My goal for this painting is to represent what it's like to have partial face blindness, which is a thing that I have. Basically, I stop being able to see faces when I get tired or mentally exhausted. All of the pieces are still there, they're just kind of don't look like they're in the right place. So I'm going to paint everything where it should go, but on separate layers, and then move it around at the end. So we're in the sketch phase at the moment. Remember, when you're in the sketch phase, to go on a separate layer from your background. That is a mistake I make almost every time. After I have the proportions right on the sketch layer, I fill it in with the dark color, and then I'm going to paint light over top of it. This is also on a separate layer so that I can flip the lines up to the top if I need to. I really recommend learning the planes of the face. It just speeds up the painting process a lot. So at this point, I'm roughing in where the light and the shadows are on the face, using the reference photo to guide me. I'm turning on and off the sketch layer as I go to make sure that everything is in the right spot. Sometimes I will blend the colors together, and sometimes I won't, depending on the kind of feel that I'm going for. In this case, I do, but a lot of times if I want a more rough, abstract look, I'll just leave them as is. Along with understanding the planes of the face, understanding the planes of the nose is really important as well. The nose is one of the more complex shapes on the face. You think you know how a nose works or looks, but if you've never actually studied how the cartilage and the bones work inside of the nose and how the skin wraps over top, then you'd be surprised as to how noses actually function as to the actual cartilage and musculature of the nose. For the most part, when I'm doing these abstract paintings, I'm not going for photorealism to the reference image. I'm more aiming for evoking a feeling, and I'm just kind of using the reference image as a guide or as a jumping off point. These paintings typically take me half an hour to an hour to do. If I'm doing a commission portrait piece, I will spend more time making sure that it is more accurate to the photo, and those can take me usually 1 to 2 hours. Eyes too are usually not the shape that we think they are. We kind of always assume that they're little ovals or circles, and usually the top of the eye has 3 planes to it and the bottom of it has 1 plane, and they extend out in 3 dimensions. So you have to figure out how the eye curves and how the eyelids interact with the rest of the skin on the face. I would recommend finding an artist who draws or paints eyes in a way that you find intriguing or that you want to imitate, and seeing if they have a tutorial. In the age of social media and YouTube, most artists have some kind of video about their process on specific things, especially if it's something that they struggled with. Moving into the hair, there's a lot of different brushes and techniques I use to make realistic looking hair if I'm doing a specific kind of painting. Because this is more abstract, I'm just using the one brush for the whole thing. And so for hair, I go in with the base color that I want to use for the hair, and then I just layer it with highlights. And then after I have all the highlights in, I layer it with shadows, and then usually layer it with highlights again. Lips are another thing, just like noses and eyes, that we kind of think we know the shape of a lip, but when you actually examine it in 3 dimensions, it looks and acts a lot differently and reacts to light differently than we would imagine. So to get a more realistic looking lip, you kind of have to understand that the top lip juts out more and casts more of a shadow onto itself and onto the underside of itself. The bottom lip is going to have shadow along the bottom, but the top is going to be mostly lit up, except for a small cast shadow that the top lip casts onto it. I'm going into some background effects now. I wanted this picture to have both a kind of dreamy, hazy look and also a glitchy look. So I'm using a bokeh brush in the background and then blooming it. I think I also used the nebula brush in Procreate. So now that all the features are painted, I'm just moving them around and changing their shape and relative size. This obviously isn't exactly what I see when I'm tired, but like I said, I can see all the features, just everything looks wrong. Procreate has a bunch of cool, pretty unique filters to itself. So like I said, I wanted a glitchy look to it, so I'm experimenting with the glitch filter. I think I also used the chromatic aberration on the base layer there. The goal again is to make it look kind of dreamy, hazy, but not right and malfunctioning. The cool thing is with all of these separate layers, the painting lends itself really well to AR holograms. And so I loaded this into Slide AR, and then when you look at the picture through your phone, all the different layers fly off of the canvas. Always remember to sign your work. I always forget to do it. So it's something that I have to be really intentional about. If people want to steal your work, they'll take your signature off, but you should at least make it hard for them. And that's how I painted this abstract portrait. Let me know what you think in the comments.